What hit me like a ton of bricks was that is a microcosm of our Creator's love for every single creation, man, woman, or child that's on this planet that he created. It's the same level of love. I don't care the religion. I don't care the background.
If an old man is dead, that old man can't be hurt. Shouldn't be hurt, shouldn't be offended. Kristen looked at me like I was crazy.
Sure.
And she, are you sure?
Welcome to Affinity Peak Performance, empowering you to peak in health and energy to fully express what you were created to be.
Hey, Dr. Todd Smith here. Welcome to Affinity Peak Performance, another episode. I'm here with my friend Bill Nishanian, and to read a little bit about him and introduce you to him. Is from Michigan originally, and he's proud to call Lewisburg, Tennessee now his home. And he's been enthusiastic and a music lover from long back, and he's plays acoustic guitar and sings quite well, quite professionally. Has had many opportunities in the recording industry, but in 2009, he switched gears and moved to Tennessee and started a painting company, which has since flourished. And during that time, he deepened his connection in his faith. This episode is actually about that being such a major component of a truly healthy lifestyle and in gaining your peak performance in your expression in life, how important having a faith connection is, a spiritual connection. But during that time, he's had quite a few, not just healing experiences, but also words of knowledge and some prophetic experiences, even some that he'll tell you even blows his mind sometimes. Mm-hmm. Will and his wife have a 4-year-old son named Will, and love different adventures like 80-mile whitewater canoe trips and hunting and fishing, and even a bit of farming on his farm. So he's had quite a journey already, and it's been a pleasure to get to know Bill over the years, and I think he's a remarkable fellow. So I know he'll have some wonderful insights for us with regard to spiritual connections. So Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You bet. Take me back a little bit to the time frame when you decided to, with all of your pursuit into music and skill sets there, which by any measure would be looked at as very successful. What was it around that time frame that was either directly or indirectly responsible for a shift in mindset of doing the painting company and moving to Tennessee?
Absolutely. No, that was kind of like the hinge pin moment of faith in my life, where God became more than a checkbox or a club. God became real to me at that point. My wife and I had a company in Michigan, and I was pursuing music for 11 years. I started a painting company so that I could afford to be a musician, because you don't make money being a musician, and if you work 40 hours, it makes it twice as hard. So started doing that up there. Then the auto bailout happened, and the company kind of took a dive, and we had to sell everything, rent everything out. And then 6 months go by, and my wife has a dream and said, we need to move to Nashville. And I said, okay, let's go. We were living with her parents at the time, trying to decide, what are we going to do now? And they said, you have to go to church with us every Sunday if you want to live here. And we said, okay. So we moved to Tennessee, and I was here, and I was doing a little bit of music and a little bit of painting. And I got to the point where I thought, man, God, I can't thrive or be successful if I'm a house divided. I have to do one or the other. But God, if you take away music, the dream has to be taken away too, because I've been consumed with this for 11 years.
Makes sense.
And the next morning I woke up and I had zero desire to be a musician anymore. So I said, okay, Lord, I said, it's going to be business. So I focused on the painting company, and it has grown exponentially. So it's been really good. It was when you were reading the intro, I thought that probably sounds weird that a musician moved to Nashville and then quit doing music. Yeah. And it was weird.
It was good weird, yeah.
It was a good weird.
Yeah. You had the quick message there. Roger that, Mm-hmm. Took the desire for it away at the same time. It's interesting, so you could focus.
Yeah.
The thinking back on I also wanted to bring the viewers up to speed on a little bit of your history with regard to your health pursuit, not just physical, dietary, workout, chiropractic, all of that, but also how the spiritual development that you've experienced over the years, how that dovetails into your overall health pursuit and expression of peak performance.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way to sum it down is, some people in certain, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but some people don't say tattoos. They say you're defiling your body, you're defiling your temple. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do believe that there is such a thing as being lazy, being a glutton, because all sin is really counterintuitive to what the Lord wants for us. So if I know that eating McDonald's for every meal every single day is bad for me, but I do it anyway, it's a form of sin. It's a form of gluttony. I'm choosing to do something that makes me feel happy rather than pursuing true happiness, which is in your relationship with the Lord. So also age sort of caught up with me. My metabolism was really high when I was younger. I could eat anything that I wanted to. I was always the guy that would sit there and finish off 3/4 or a whole pizza by myself.
No, I'm still that guy.
Yeah. I wish I was still that guy. But it just got to the point where I thought, another part of the story, you mentioned Will. We adopted Will in 2019. He was born in 2018. And I just found myself being tired. I found myself not having energy and, not taking care of myself. My back was always hurting. And that's how you and I became friends. I was coming out and saying, okay, I did it again. Fix me. And I just realized in 5 years, 6 years, Will's going to be wanting to play catch. He's going to want to run with me and play football, and I'm not going to be able to. So I just made a decision that it's time to get serious about health, eating right, working out, being consistent about it, even when I don't want to, even when I don't see the scale moving, just being consistent with it.
Yeah, consistency seems to be a huge component for sure.
Yeah.
The energy thing too, I hear all the time in the clinic more and more, especially the last few years, during the pandemic years for sure, because of the change in habits and daily activities and abilities and freedoms, but also just the patterns that started to change for many people. Yeah. That energy is really tanked out across the board.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. So it's good to bring about awareness to these categories so that little by little, hopefully people can get a little motivation and start building their strength back and building their energy levels back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an uphill battle. For me, it seems like I'll take 10 steps forward and 3 back, but it's just a matter of the long-term mindset. What's the alternative? Do I stop doing smart things for my body today? Then what direction am I going back to where I started? Or if I mess up for a day, just get right back on the wagon the next morning, and just being consistent and surrounding myself with other guys like yourself who are serious about it and can hold me accountable. That's the whole thing with Christianity too, is for me, loving Jesus means spending time with him. So, particularly that morning time, the quiet time, studying the word. But then with the accountability thing, also getting a group of guys for me has been my church. So, you can go on Sunday morning and hear a message and be convicted and have a moment with the Lord and fellowship. But for me, if I go with my group, my men's group, we've been doing Friday morning at 6:00 for over a decade. And if I go in there and go, hey guys, I'm struggling with this thing and I really need help. I need you guys to hold me accountable. Next week, I want you to check in with me and see how I did. That to me is motivation. That to me is being the body of Christ and sharpening one another.
I was going to say the iron sharpening the iron. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I was going to ask you about too, with regard to that relationship, it seems to me that the more I look at it overall across the board in life, that this notion of when you brought up different sins and different things that we fall short as humans, it seems to, if you reverse engineer those, more often than not, if not every time, it boils down to a single component that is kind of a theme for it. And that is that most of those shortcomings fall out of an egocentric or a selfish mindset or gearing or center point.
Yeah.
And how does that, for you, how do you manage that normal human nature with regard to your day in, day out, and your, not just your company, but your family? And
yeah, that you said selfish, the selfish nature, that is really like the ground seed of where we fall short, really everywhere that we fall short, because the word says that when you are saved, the seed of Adam, the seed of sin is removed. This Holy Spirit is replaced. So that old man, that old creation is now dead. So if an old man is dead, that old man can't be hurt. Shouldn't be hurt, shouldn't be offended, shouldn't have hard feelings, shouldn't have expectations. If I did something for someone and I expected them to behave a certain way and then they didn't, now I have a right to be offended. So I always watch for the words me, my, and I in my feelings as trigger points for me to go, oh, I'm in the flesh. If I'm in the spirit, then I'm called to be selfless. Selfless means I'm just going to give it away. I'm going to give my life away. I'm going to give my heart away. I'm going to give my time away. I'm going to expect nothing in return except that God will bless the work of my hands. And that identity piece is the big piece that for me is every time I fall short is when I step outside of that identity. Every time I step out, it's all great that you did this and this and this, Lord, but I've got it from here. I can take care of this area of my life. And it's like, that's when it's kind of recipe for disaster. So
I was thinking on this thought stream the other day, and you may have heard of the 90-10 rule, right? So 90% of what we worry about never actually comes true. The 10% that does come true is 90% better than we thought it was going to be. So we burn off a tremendous amount of emotional energy, mental energy on things that aren't going to be what we think they're going to be anyways.
Right.
So to have faith in that fact and stay not of the flesh, but in the spirit, we can do much better on avoiding those little pitfalls of humanity with regard to having these false sense of expectations that we're going to constantly fall short of, whether it be by our own regard or those that we interact with or life situations. So it's very good advice that to remember and to delineate of flesh and of spirit. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing that always shocks me is the more that I read the word, the more things are revealed. And so like you just said, like the worrying about the future, the word says, be anxious for nothing. Yes. Oh, be anxious for nothing. Okay, I get it. But like, I have things to be anxious about. So like,
aren't I supposed to be?
Shouldn't I worry about is my business going to have income next week, next quarter, next month? Shouldn't I worry about if we can afford to do this or that, or if this person's not healthy enough to do these things? I'm worried about them dying, So be anxious for nothing. Like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to worry about the future. Consider the birds of the air. It's like, okay. So it's like, as I read all these business books and I read all these self-help books, not from like a worldly standpoint. I just want to find out, is there any $1 million ideas I can glean out of this book, or some health thing I can pull out of this little nugget out of here? 9 times out of 10, I go, that's really good. Oh, that's already in the word. So at some point in my life, I want to collect all of these things and just put them in like a 1,000 things you can find in business that are in the word already. The
ultimate guide to the galaxy already there.
That's right. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Now, how let me ask you this. When you found your spiritual connection, true spiritual connection, how old were you then?
28.
Okay. That's refreshing to hear, because refreshing from the standpoint of, oftentimes I talk to folks that I respect as being very centered spiritually, which I do of you. Oftentimes they have had the benefit of either growing up with it and developed it super early, which is cool. But I think it's yet another thing for someone to have lived more of life and then came to it, not on the risk of saying more authentically, which that is not accurate, but maybe hard-earned.
Yeah,
would be a better term for that. And I know, I'm sure the answer to this is astounding, yes, all over. But what fruits would you say you have realized in your adult life from 28 on, just as a result, with regard, if I'm summarizing it, like how this plays a role in your overall peak performance in life, your satisfaction, your serenity, your ability to see, to be downloaded with vision for situations and people, discernment.
Yeah.
How much of a role would you say that has played in your adult life?
It has pretty much defined almost every aspect of our lives. My wife and I are both very dependent in a good way, dependent on the Lord for guidance pretty much with every area of our life. Where we should live is because of the Lord, our home that we purchased, even becoming foster parents. It's an amazing story, so I'll share it quickly.
Sure.
For years, my wife Kristen said, I want to adopt one day. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't, that's not for me. I can't do it. And then privately, I would come back to the Lord and I would say, all right, God, I don't want to adopt, but if you want to change my heart up for adoption, I'll adopt one day. Okay, I'll do that. I'll submit that to you. And for years and years, no change. We had actually gotten to the point where we said, okay, we're just going to be, adults with no kids. And we were walking out of an appointment one day and it hit me like someone hit me with a baseball bat. Oh, this pain hit my heart. I want to adopt. And Kristen looked at me like I was crazy.
Sure.
And she, are you sure? Are you sure? And I think she was defensive at first, like, don't get my hopes up. Are you serious about this? And then we went through the whole process to adopt out of the foster care system program, roadblocks and things like that. And then we found out we can't adopt out of the foster care system unless we're foster parents. For 6 months, you have to have a child in your home before you can officially adopt. So we went into that process, and then we went months and months and months with no child in our home. I said, Lord, what is going on? When are we going to have a child in our house? And God said to me, 2 weeks before Christmas. Okay.
Very specific.
Very specific. I said, okay. So then another 3-4 weeks goes by, and Kristen called me from, she was walking through Walmart. She cut through the baby section. She got overwhelmed by God, and she started crying, and she called me and she said, I think God wants us to adopt a baby boy. And I said, you heard God wrong. Like, no, we were supposed to have like an 8-year-old, like we're thinking we're older. We can't do a baby. We were 38. And I don't know if we could do a baby. And I hung up the phone. I said, God, again, I'll hand this over to you, Lord. And God said, if I sent you a baby, would you not want it? Okay. Yeah. All right. No. If you send me a baby, I'll want it. So I called Chris and I said, okay, we'll open up our spectrum on the foster parent thing to say we'll take down to a baby up to 8 years old. And then we got a call on early December, and they said there's a baby boy and he was just born, and they named him William, which was my name. And they said, will you guys take him? And we said, yeah. So we ran up there, and we were with him in the hospital for a couple of weeks. They said, he's real sick. We don't think he's going to be home for at least 6 weeks. And I looked at Chris and I said, no, he'll be home December 11th. I said, because God said 2 weeks before Christmas, and December 11th, this is the day he came home.
Wow, yeah.
And then the doctors told us how old they thought he was, how far term. And we tracked back the day that God changed my heart for adoption was the week of that they estimate that he was conceived. So I believe God changed my heart for adoption the day that he was conceived.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
We share a similar story with adoption. I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but Ty, our 16-year-old son, was we had gone into the adoption process because after our firstborn, we went many years. My wife had some PCOS, some different fertility issues. Yeah.
Same thing.
And we spent buckets of money and saw all the gurus, short of throwing chicken bones on the ground, trying to get it reversed, and it never did. So we said, well, we love children and want to build a bigger family. So we decided to adopt as well. And so we got in that process of adopting. And long story short, Ty was born in Vanderbilt prematurely in the little NIC unit. And he was just 2 pounds and some change. But when we were in that process of interviewing with the mother, where she made us sweat us out for about 2 months before we got the, or about a month, I guess it was, before we got the phone call that she was decided on her family. But long story short, I prayed specifically because I was new to the concept of embracing adoption, because I'd always wanted to have my own DNA replicate.
Sure.
And so when I was praying about it, I said 2 things. One, it's hard enough for someone to be adopted as far as later in life and those emotional things that they go through and have to learn and grow within. But also, Ty was a different race. And that's going to add an extra burden in my mind. I was thinking at the time to what would be my son.
Sure.
Is that the right thing to do for his behalf? And so I prayed about it, and a good friend of mine said, well, we'll look at his options in life. Otherwise, it's very radically different, And I said, that's true cognitively.
Sure.
But emotionally, when I was praying about it, what hit me like a ton of bricks was all in one moment, I got the confirmation that, because my question was, would I love this child to the nth degree like I would my own biological child?
Yeah.
And what hit me like a ton of bricks was, crystal clear, absolutely, to the nth degree. And to me, what I took away from that was that is a microcosm of our Creator's love for every single creation, man, woman, or child that's on this planet that he created. It's the same level of love. I don't care the religion. I don't care the background. I don't care the skin color. I don't care. None of that means nothing to the level of love that we were created from.
Right.
And when it gives you goosebumps.
I'm tearing up, man. I'm trying to think of something else while you're talking.
I mean, that was my real experience with that. And so I was blessed with that experience.
Yeah. And
I feel like I should share that experience because it's very, very real.
Yeah.
It's more real than this table here,
Yeah.
But anyhow, so and I'm coming from a background too, just to share with the audience, where I grew up in different religions. I studied many religions, everything from Eastern philosophies to many religions. But I saw beauty in almost all of them, if not all of them. I saw truths in all of them.
Yeah.
But I was always hung up on the religious aspect, the doctrines and the religious components, which are man's interpretation of those things, and fall short because it is of man, right? So someone's interpretation. So that is what kept me from fully engaging in my earlier years. But when I had my highest level of engagement, that point forward, also I was an adult. It was because I came to that ultimate awareness of that level of love, and when you build that relationship. For me, it is through Christ to God. When you have that relationship and you build that relationship, it is beyond profound what I've experienced, not just in fruits of life, but also in those inner knowings, those inner wisdoms, those inner and outer awarenesses, and being able to be led and guided and shown. Yeah. And that's what's been for me. But we share the adoption thing. And then we got pregnant with a little girl. So go figure that. That's a classic
amazing
story. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I find the pitfalls in Christianity, again, is in the flesh. But one thing I've found is a lot of times like the study to show yourself approved can become a snare, because I can read the word all day long and I can know it like the back of my hand. And then when you get in the presence of another believer who has a different doctrine, suddenly you could get into this unhealthy, unfruitful bickering that has nothing to do with the Son of God crucified for us. So I'm always really careful when it comes to ministering, to being an evangelist, to being part of the body, to make sure that I'm never going through my carnal mind, pulling out bits of wisdom, going through the word, picking out the little pieces that I think fit the box, and then blasting somebody with it. It comes down to that relationship. Like a lot of times I'll ask myself, and this isn't original, but I've stolen it from someone, Lord, what are we going to do? What should we do, God? And that's a whole other direction to take an argument, a conflict, a situation. Another little trinket is when the ground is shaking, God is moving. So whenever there's something like, how am I going to deal with this? Oh my Lord, the ground is shaking, God is moving. All right, God, how are we going to work through this? What awesome thing are you going to do through this storm? Because you always work things out for your good, whether I see it as good or not. Yeah. You find a way to redeem it. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So why would this be any different? So I just get to the place where I'm so dependent on him in that relationship rather than trying to carnally figure it out.
That's good to hear you say that. And that was, even as a teenager, I remember observing in these different religions of faith that I met with, and came away with the notion, I still believe this to be true today, that we, especially in the Christian kingdom, with the different divisions and churches and faiths within that, it seems like we spend an inordinate amount of energy with that issue with bickering over legalese, the Pharisees going at it. If we spent the same energy and focus from the love of Christ, and we're more united as a faith overall, and spent little to no energy with the differences in doctrines, how much more moving and powerful could we be as a religion, if you will, category?
Yeah,
I think it would amplify it times 10. That's just my observation.
No, absolutely.
That's my hope for it. But
I know it breaks God's heart, but it breaks my heart to know that the lost, the unbelievers, they look to the Christians to see where we fall, and when we fall, it's there's nothing new there. There's nothing special there. I don't need what he has, because you see what happened to him.
Yeah.
And there's just so much more to that as a body of believers. And I love the American church. I can't say I was saved by personal encounters with God, but I was discipled through the American church. But the American church, it's a hybrid of it's a hybrid of a mission field and a church body. And so there's this tension between the two that makes it really hard for someone to come in lukewarm or questioning. You have the people on the one side who are on fire, and you have people in the middle, and you have the Pharisees, and they're all kind of mushed into this one place. And the American church has saved millions, but I don't know. I feel like God's been leading me towards this other direction. Like there's this ministry building up in me, like something like a teaching house where people can come, no Christians there. It's just a pastor teacher who just teaches 5-6 days a week. You can come and ask questions, learn about the Bible, but then when you give yourself to the Lord, then you get plugged in with the local church. something like that, where people could come and feel safe and ask questions and not feel intimidated.
Sure.
And learn about God, maybe, quench some of those questions that they have, but not feel like you're walking into like enemy territory in a sense, or feeling less than. Or
I think that would be an important conduit for many. I know I was at that place at one point in life too, that those sensitivities and provisions would have been well received, but I couldn't find that kind of thing at the time. So I think that would be a good thing. If you were to give the listeners Bill Nishanian's takeaway ideas, maybe 1, 2, or 3 things with regard to, especially if someone is at that place where they know there's a higher power. They don't necessarily have a deep relationship with a higher power. They want it because it's part of our natural affinity for what it is that we are created to be.
Yeah.
To develop that.
Yeah.
At their own pace.
Yeah.
In a very succinct journey. What would be some takeaway ideas that you'd have for someone that they could instill or start as either little practices or little quandaries, or what would you? How would you help someone that's at that place right now?
Yeah, the thing that saved me was I read, "Seek me and you'll find me. Knock and the door will be open." And I thought, that sounds like a challenge. So I told God in my arrogance, all right, I will seek you for 1 year. For 1 year, I'll give it everything I've got. I'll listen to Christian music. I'll read the Word. I'll read it front to back. I'll read it in several translations. I will listen to podcasts and teachers, and I'll go to church. Every opportunity the doors are open, I'll go in there. But after 1 year, if I don't find you, I'm going to check that box and I'm going to say, okay, now I'll go not worry about that anymore. And I've said frequently 2 months. It wasn't 2 months in, but it was probably not even 2-3 weeks before I had unexplainable coincidences, those God winks happen. So I would say if you know there's a higher power and you're seeking, seek God and reckless abandon, I would say. Just go in, all in. You don't have to, go in and pretend like you're a Christian or pretend you've got that's another thing is like people think you go into church and you have to be perfect. That's the whole point of it. Yeah. We are not perfect. Yeah. We are saying, I am not perfect, so I need this relationship with this amazing God who loved me first, who laid down his life, who loves me no matter how many times I fall. He is better. I need him to cover my sins. And because of that relationship, you naturally, because of the closeness and the intimacy with him, your life just changes. The things that you don't want to do sort of just don't happen anymore. I remembered.
That's good advice.
All of a sudden I realized I don't swear anymore. I was like, that's weird. Like where I grew up, swearing, like they're just verbs and adjectives and nouns, and just wherever they fit in. And all of a sudden I realized, I don't swear anymore. And that wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened. Yeah. So
I heard kind of a reframing along those lines the other day, and it was basically, it's not so much about avoiding sin or making mistakes, which is an important goal too, but it's more about when we resonate, when we're in line with God's desires, not just for us in our life, but for humanity. Yeah. The more in tune we are with that, the less likely we're going to make decisions or create actions or behaviors that are outside of that, because we're in tune. Yeah. So the whole goal is to be as in tune as we possibly can with our Creator and what his desires are. And when we are, it is profound. The directions and the goals and the information that's provided for us in our path. Yeah. It's definitely what I've found to be one of the main components of the overall peak performance ability of, living your best life, so to speak, you know,
Yeah.
the old cliche.
And even that, I said earlier, the me, my, or I, whenever I get, oh, that affects me, those kind of things. Whenever I do see things like swearing, that also is ooh, where did that come from? Why did that slip out? So it's kind of, they're like those little check marks, check points in the road. All of a sudden you see things that are not fruits of the Spirit, and you're like, oh, wait, there's something going on. I'm not near to the Lord in my own pursuit, my own relationship with him, for those things to slip out. So I have some work to do.
Yeah.
So God will never leave us. He'll never forsake us, but we certainly have the ability to tune him out.
Yeah, we can be pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's kind of like the long lines of the, you know, emotions pop up because we're human. We have emotions. They come sometimes automatically, whether from things that have happened growing up or just being wired a certain way,
Sure.
personality, whatnot. But if it's something we ponder on or something that keeps coming up, then the question becomes, like you said, self-check. You know, where is that coming from? Where am I out of tune?
Yeah.
But well, good. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time and energy and your wisdom on this category. It's
Yeah.
such an important category, and
It is.
we could probably do 12 podcasts on this category. Different stories, but,
Yeah.
I appreciate you making it out to provide for that.
You too. Thank you for inviting me. I had a good time.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. Love you.
There we go.
Was that? Oh, we probably went over time. I didn't have a clock to judge by. Oh, it's right behind you.